When we think back to when we were in power, when Trump was president, sure, there were some never Trumpers, but for the most part, we all unified behind Trump. And when I think back to the State of the Union speeches Trump gave, I can't think of a time when the Republican narrative was more clear. And the Democrats, while clearly opposed, you remember Nancy Pelosi physically ripping up Trump's speech, our whole side was quite unified. But ever since the midterm results of 2022, this unity has slowly disappeared. Some of it started in 2020 and maybe even more in 2021. But after November 8th, 2022, very quickly, conversations began about what went wrong and why, and people immediately started pointing fingers. There was a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on, as they say. I know many of you have likely seen the infighting taking place, and it's very disturbing. Some say the midterms were great and maybe it wasn't a red wave, but hey, we control Congress. This group has a very positive outlook on how things went. And the party's recent expansion into the Black and Hispanic vote were unheard of years ago. In fact, the GOP won the popular vote in the midterms by 6 points. Others say the midterms were far from a red wave. We were expecting a bloodbath, a blowout election where we'd control the House and the Senate. Many thought this would happen because Biden seemed so obviously bad, with his policies so obviously harming Americans, with record high inflation and people feeling it at the gas pump. But alas, we missed the mark. We overestimated our wins. We counted our chickens before they hatched, maybe. Others say we could have gotten far more seats, but we didn't because of various reasons, whether it was candidate quality or it was lack of fundraising or mismanagement of funds, as McConnell backed Murkowski instead of Shabaka and left Blake Masters out to dry. There are many reasons why people feel this election did not turn out the way we had hoped. But nevertheless, the point is they are disappointed and we are not unified. So naturally, the finger pointing continues. The media has certainly run with a narrative of Trump versus DeSantis, despite the fact that DeSantis has not actually declared he's running for president. The media has somehow dubbed him the next leader. The Trump-DeSantis feud is also played up in the media, even though DeSantis has not actually spoken negatively about Trump. Meanwhile, people who have spoken more directly on this subject aren't really worth discussing. This includes others like Mike Pence. He said he thinks we'll have better choices in the future than Trump, and also says, big surprise, he's considering a run for president in 2024. So by better choices, he means himself. And don't even get me started on what a disaster of a candidate he is. And by the way, he has no chance of winning the nomination or a general election. So we'll have to see how all of this plays out. But now it's okay for us all to debate and discuss and think about what happened in 2022. We can even talk about 2024. But ultimately, what we need is a coherent, unified plan. 2023 is going to be a time of influx for us because so much is uncertain and we aren't in power right now. Who will be driving our agenda? Kevin McCarthy? The midterms were still recent and already we're seeing Republican infighting like no one has seen since the 2015 primaries. Our lack of unity as a party isn't just about strength, though. It's not just about the fact that we're a bit of a wounded soldier right now. We're up against something big. But we also are lacking a unified vision as a party, what we offer the American people specifically, and we are also lacking a unified plan of how to carry this out. I know the word unity seems dumb because it's often used by the left as a weapon. Unity, they say, but all they mean is unify with us or else. But that's not what I mean here. I mean genuinely unifying as conservatives, all of us who share the same values, who want to win. And we will have to do this if we want to win in 2024. Unity has a deep and important root in the American fabric. Until it was replaced with "In God We Trust" by Congress in 1956, the phrase "E pluribus unum" was widely considered the de facto motto of the United States. Since July 4th, 1776, "E pluribus unum" was the official theme of the first seal of the United States. The Latin phrase, which means "one from many," was meant to underscore the fact that despite being formed from disparate groupings of English, Irish, Scottish, French, German, and Dutch settlers, the people of America would be united in the goal of achieving independence from the British royalty. The phrase invokes the power of unity. It is clear that without uniting around a single cause, the colonies would have never effectively beaten back the British and formed America as we know it today. E pluribus unum is also a concise refutation of the British belief that the colonies were incapable of mounting a tactically coherent response to any clampdown on the colonials. In this sense, the motto serves as a taunt. We are not as divided and weak as you would have us to be. The motto marks something of a small miracle of the formation of our country. Because in the normal course of things, if you start with many, you generally end up with many. The idea of many from many is therefore completely unremarkable. Outside of the offices of corporate chief diversity officers, you never see anyone lauding this principle of disunity. And speaking of corporate diversity officers, their program to sow disunity across our nation's businesses is a disturbing sign that Americans have grown insensate to the damaging effects of the destruction of the cultural values of unity and loyalty. Sure, there are pockets of resistance in places like local school boards, where CRT is being banned, but every other institution these days is being run by the treacherous self-saboteurs. Take the churches, for instance. Many are still struggling to recover the same attendance members they had before the pandemic. This might have something to do with the fact that across the country, pastors, ministers, and priests arbitrarily nullified one of the 10 Commandments, to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Why did they do this? In order to kowtow to secular regulators. The same regulators who kept movie theaters, Walmart, and liquor stores open throughout the pandemic. Those faith leaders willingly collaborated with an obvious lie, turned their backs on their holy duties to forsake God himself, and bent their knees to secular power. They put the world above God and therefore deserve far worse than just middling attendance in the pews today. This twisted and non-traditional view of the church as a subordinate entity of the state is the direct result of the diminished importance of faith and religion in the lives of people across Western society generally. After all, you cannot define the very word loyal without the word faith, a word dripping with religious connotations that has fallen out of favor as a remnant of outmoded and defunct old-school virtues. And when even religious leaders no longer understand the meaning or importance of faith, you know we are in trouble.